congratulations on a pair of All-America honors this weekend. And let's start off by, just getting your reaction and your kind of your reflections now that you've had a chance to sit and think about the races for a minute. How are you feeling about how you performed specifically at cross country, but also you can't talk about cross country without talking about indoor nationals at this point either.
Yeah. So I guess kind of going to cross, it was definitely, as difficult as a lot of people said. I mean, you can kind of look through the race results and you see, like in essentially every race, it was kind of either you had a good one or you didn't, like a lot of that course was definitely really challenging, 25-mile-an-hour headwinds, lots of really steep incline, and, just a 10K on grass in general is just always going to be very difficult. But I think one of the biggest things that I had kind of as a takeaway was how much it meant to, be able to represent Michigan. Because the biggest, kind of downer about everything was, obviously not being selected to go as a team. And that definitely left a pretty bitter taste in our mouth. I think a lot of the national, team consensus was that we got kind of screwed. We had a lot of teams reach out to us, a lot of coaches reach out even to the committee and say, like, you guys definitely should have been there. There was a lot of things that, were definitely didn't go our way. And I don't obviously want to get, because it's done now, so there's no point in really griping about it anymore. But one of the biggest things that I wanted to make sure that I did was, do my absolute best to go out there and show why we should have been at the meet. And when it got to 5-6K and you're getting back to that rolling section of hills back in the, like the tougher part of the course, a lot of me was definitely, pretty tired after a lot of racing, and like running up at the front is definitely not easy. Or I wasn't up at the front, but near the front, in those spots, because there's just so many guys and you're jostling. But the thing that I kept coming back to in my mind was, there's a lot of guys in Ann Arbor that would want to be suffering right now. And so, I owe it to them, if I got selected and that I got to race, and, there's a huge group of guys that wanted to race as well and deserved to race, that, it was on me to make sure that I, did everything that I could to try and compete to the highest ability, to, to honor them, to honor the hard work that they put in all fall, to honor how much they've persevered through cancellations, through false positives, through, ultimately not even being selected. Like, we have been through the ringer this year. And if I was going to be the only one on that course, then I wanted to make sure that I did my absolute best to make sure that I showed why Michigan deserved to be, at that meet, and why we could have thrown down a really good team performance as a whole. So as exciting as it was to be able to, repeat an All-American in cross, it was definitely, it was for a purpose, and it would have been a lot better if we could have enjoyed that as a team. But all that is just fuel for us. Guys, I am completely undone by how, guys have still chose to show up. Like, one of the biggest team responses was, like, this was hard. It's probably like the biggest dagger in the heart you could get, is not being able to show up at nationals, and especially in cross, because that's just special at Michigan. But everyone's overall reaction was, we're going to be better for it. And I just like, and that's not me, that's just the guys, that's just a token of their resilience and their, wanting to be the best team and the best individual that they can be. So I was super impressed by that. And I just wanted to make sure that I did my best to represent them well.
Excellent. So I'm going to open it up here for questions for Dave and Connor. So whoever wants to hop in first. How about we go with Connor first, since Dave started off with Kevin.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
So I guess, what were your thoughts when you crossed the finish, when you ended up finishing that race?
Are we speaking of cross?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's crazy to even think that there was multiple races. I still can't get over that part. But no, the first, to be super honest with you, nothing. A lot of relief, but like kind of hit black when I crossed. Like, I had just kind of went dark, fell. I had to get dragged off to the side. Thankfully, I was off camera, but some guy just brought his arms up under me and literally just dragged me off to the side, because I couldn't really breathe, that kind of thing. A lot of relief. I knew that I was an All-American again. I was a little disappointed because I got passed by, like 6 guys in the last K, but going into the finish, I was like trying to wind up one more time at like right after 9K, because there's like another decent hill and then turning into the downhill finish. And then right when you hit that hill, there was just the headwind right in your face. So I like moved to the front of my group to try and make a big push for home. And I just got hit with that headwind and just like everything shut down kind of like immediately after that. So I was telling a couple people, my only thought going downhill was don't fall, because I could feel my toes dragging because like I just couldn't drive my knees anymore. So I was like, dude, you did not just run 9.9K just to fall on your face and, give up spots. So I got passed by a few guys at the end, which definitely sucked, but I was just very, very relieved that race was over. It was a lot of battling demons during it, so I was very happy.
Nice to meet you, Kyle, or Devin. I already know Kyle. I'm meeting Connor for the first time, but nice to meet you as well, Devin. First of all, I want to congratulations, and what you did Saturday, Monday, incredible. And what you mentioned, first of all, what you mentioned to me about cross country and why you were doing that, and kind of that power of your teammates with you, just shows that a lot of people don't feel cross country's a team sport, but how much of a team sport it really is, and and their influence helping you get through the race on Monday. But and then that fact, talk a bit about the transition. So you were doing indoor track to a cross country meet. I mean, it's hard enough adjusting, say, even after a summer of training, on the roads, even to get that feel back with grass under your feet and racing on grass. But that transition from not only from like, the indoor back to back to grass, but that transition Saturday to Monday of, was that just more of like, I mean, that was basically the equivalent of like a vicious hard workout for you on Saturday, a quick recovery rest day, and then going at it on Monday. So how did that go for you physically and mentally from Saturday, Monday?
Yeah. I mean, like most guys will kind of tell you, it was definitely, a bit bizarre off the bat that they would even schedule the cross meet 3 days after the indoor meet. That was already just kind of weird as is. But, I think the biggest thing was going into it, I knew that it was just going to be really, really difficult. So when you're kind of preparing for like the worst case scenario, anything better than that is like a huge relief. So, I was fully expecting, after Friday, after the 5K, just to feel like trash. Like I was only getting ready for that race. I was like, I can't think about getting ready for both. Because that would just be way too much. So I was trying to just compartmentalize, like going to Fayetteville. I was like, we're only going to worry about the 5K. And then, whatever happens after that, then we're going to worry about Stillwater. Right. Like, so just to make sure that I was leaving everything out there when I was racing. Cause at a national meet, you always want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. So definitely it was compartmentalizing to not get overwhelmed, but also to make sure that I was on point when I needed to be. Cause it would have been worst case if I would have gotten, a K to go in the 5K and then gone, well, shoot, I have a 10K on Monday and I don't feel good, and then shut it down. Right. Like I was like, no, I definitely want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to, race as hard as I can both days. So after Friday, I was definitely obviously pretty tired, but somehow the body just kind of came around pretty well. Mentally, it was definitely hard to get up and say, well, shoot, like I haven't run a cross race for 2 weeks. I'm pretty tired. Like, again, it was kind of like more battling demons out there than it was anything. Cause it was, a lot of guys that I was running with in the groups, I was like, dang, they're fresh. Like a lot of them didn't run it indoor nationals. A lot of them have been getting ready only for cross country, like Notre Dame, Stanford, NAU, BYU, a lot of teams that opted out of the indoor season. So a lot of it was more of the mental aspect, I think. Sully and I talked a while on the car ride from Fayetteville to Stillwater, and he was just like, look, if you raced on a Friday, we'd work out on a Monday, like that, none of that changes. He's like, so you're going to feel okay. You're not going to feel, super lethargic. He's like, you're plenty fit to make sure that you can run both, you can run both. And that's why we chose to do both. But it was, I think mentally it was just the getting over the hurdle of saying, like, not only can I compete in both, or not only can I do both, but I can compete in both. Especially coming from, the recent 2 years ago in that cross race, A bit of it felt almost like I kind of came out of nowhere. Like I was probably ranked in the top 50, top 60 going into that season. And then, getting 16th, it was like, wow, like that was definitely unexpected. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to make sure I was trying to convince myself, like, that's not a flash in the pan, like that wasn't just a one-time performance where, you had a really, really good day and then, you're never going to be able to repeat that. I was trying to convince myself, like, not only can you compete at the front, but even on tired legs, you can still be an All-American. You can still be up running with those guys. So I think mentally the biggest hurdle was just making sure that I was telling myself that I could believe in my fitness and that, I was ready to do both, even though it was something I had never done before. So.
So your cross country career at Michigan, being a redshirt senior, that seemed to be a good way to end it. Can you just reflect on the cross country career you had as a whole, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, good thing is we actually don't lose this year of eligibility. So I'm going to be here at Michigan for all 3 seasons next year. So I get one more go at it, which is really cool, which I'm very, very grateful for, because even though it was fun to do that, it's definitely not how I would have wanted to end my cross career. Win or lose, you always want to do cross with your guys, like that's why so many professional runners now look back on that meet and, you see it all over Twitter. They're just so they're so envious because they're like, I would give anything to be able to run one more cross race with, a team, because as you transition into the professional running world, it becomes much more individual. It's, your own sponsors, your own performances, your own teams that you're trying to make, things like that. And you lose that team aspect. So as grateful as I was to be able to run this race, I definitely wouldn't want that to be the end, because I didn't have other guys there to celebrate or, hurt with, like, even if we would have gotten, like if it wouldn't have gone well as a team, it still would have meant more being there with the guys rather than doing it by myself. So thankfully I have another trip around the sun, which is great. But as my, at Michigan, I've only had one other cross season due to the pandemic last year, canceling everything. And then the 2 years prior to that, I was hurt with an Achilles injury. And I mean, that the only thing that I can reflect on is like how our team, the biggest thing, it always goes back to the team. And I know that that's like a typical Michigan, thing, like the team. And I don't mean to just pull that out as like a cute little quote to throw around, but the top 7 guys that line up for the national meet, or, me lining up for the national meet this year, it's not like an individual effort. And one of the things that always blows me away is like how much guys, like how the entire group pushes that 7 guys forward. Right. So it's like those 7 guys aren't there because they're, doing something crazy special, or because, they, it's because they have a huge group of guys that they work out with day in and day out, and that like we continue to push each other, and that those 7 guys get the chance to race, but it's because of a huge mass of effort and support behind them. So like after this weekend, the biggest thing that I could say was like, yes, I was out there running with the Block M, but like there are so many guys that get no recognition for what I was able to do. Like none of this is possible by myself, none of it. And that's like, I think the biggest thing that I'm so appreciative of being here at Michigan is that it's always focused on the team. It's like, what can we do as a team? What can, how can guys, even if they're not going to be racing, how can we contribute as individuals to push the team forward? Like everyone is just so bought in. And I think that's just what makes the difference. For us particularly, is that it's always about the collective. It's always about, whoever can give anything that they have, they give it to make sure that the top is always going to be like, pushing our team forward, and that we always can put forth the best results. So in terms of cross country specifically, that's just always like the biggest thing that I'm so grateful for, is that, there's always a rallying effort, and everyone is working together as a team to try and push for like the highest goals that we can achieve. So that was a ramble, but yeah, the team is very special.
You've had a busy weekend. You're allowed to ramble.
Thanks.
And apologies. I believe I said your race was Saturday, so Friday was the 5,000.
Oh yeah, no worries.
So I gave you one fewer day of recovery there, but two is still a tough challenge as well. One last question, and again, I appreciate the team aspect that you're mentioning there, and how hard that is. I think to go from, you're competing with your team, not only in training but in races every single week, and then you qualify individually to go to nationals, and it can be a letdown. But you use that, I think, your teammates' inspiration while you were there to help you out, which was a big thing. One last question for me. I was just curious. So with the challenge of the pandemic the last year, with going out there and kind of proving you can go race an awesome 5,000 on the track, and then come back so quickly, and stay focused and tough enough to grind through a 10K on the grass. Again, that transition just amazes me too. But how do you think that's going to help you out now? That confidence from what you just did help you into the seasons you got remaining at Michigan?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was like reaffirm. It's always good to run well, right? It's very nice when things come together, and especially if you can back them up one after another. That, I think that just shows a lot, like that even though you think you're fit and you think you're ready to race and you think you're making strides in the sport, racing well is always obviously the best evidence of that. And I think the past weekend, and also the couple weeks before that with the race in Tallahassee, and then also Big Ten indoors, I think they just were affirmations that I really am, like, I'm getting better, and the fitness is moving along well, but also that all the work that we put in the fall was exactly what we needed. I think a lot of the benefit that I reaped out of the fall was just consistent training, like not having to get ready for multiple races. That can be pretty taxing on the body, can be pretty tiring. But just having that huge block of time, March to December, just to get ready for these past few weeks. And I think that the past few weekends of racing have just affirmed for me and helped my confidence to know that, like I really did make some good strides, and, I developed my fitness a lot more, and that we're on a little bit of a different level now than what I was going into the year last year. So I think that's really good for the confidence. I told Sully, I was like, I don't know if, I'm too worried now about, a double at conference, or, like trying to put myself into the faster heats at bigger invites, like coming up in the sport, when you get into the fast heat, the invite heat, you're like, wow, like is, especially when it's your first couple of times, you're like, wow, I don't know if I belong here. A lot of these guys are so much better than me. But now it really feels like, no, like I belong there, which isn't easy for me to say, because I will still always be in awe of some of the guys and what they do in the NCAA. I mean, it's just stupid. Like, I mean, it's always getting better, and the top is always just so good, which is what's so cool about being in the NCAA. But I think the past few performances definitely helped me to like fully believe in myself and say like, no, like you belong in, like in the top, and you can compete with some of these guys. And I think that will help me, but it'll also help when, it comes down to like team oriented, like things again, like conference, when an outdoor, when, it's about scoring points, like there's no one in the race that I should back down from, right? Or in cross next year, it's like, you need a low stick. If you're going to be a national contending team, you need a low stick. So, not being afraid to go to the front and put myself there and say, no, I can run with these guys. Right. So I think the confidence was definitely a big takeaway from the past few weeks.
Dave, Connor, do we have any more questions here?
All set for me.
If I could throw in like a more personality-based question, I see you have a Bruce Lee poster in the background there.
Oh yeah.
Are you a huge fan of Bruce Lee?
Very, very big Bruce Lee fan. Yes. Now, okay, confession time. I will say, it's I got this when I wasn't super into Bruce Lee. Like, okay, if you can, I'll give you a little pan. So all these 3 things I kind of just got like in the Chinatown area of Chicago. I was just, kind of walking around after a meet, and I just kind of wanted to get them, and I thought they looked cool. They've been my room decorations all of my years in college. So I wasn't a huge fan, but after I watched the ESPN 30 for 30 over quarantine and like kind of delved into some of his movies and stuff, and I'm a huge fan. So definitely very, very big Bruce Lee fan for sure. Thanks for that one. I like that question.
No more questions? I have one more. Kevin, in his interview just a few moments ago, said that you crossed the finish line, and I don't know if you recall asking this or not, but you were asking, like, was this good enough? Were you happy with this performance? In your mind, like, what was making you feel like you needed to ask, like, was this good enough? Like, it seemed like you knew you were an All-American. Is there something that happened over that last K, or was it just like, what you touched on before, where you're still kind of in awe of being at the top of the NCAA, just kind of, what was the mentality that kind of led you to ask, was this enough?
Yeah. That's interesting that you brought that up. I think the question is always like, it's a weird one to ask, because it's like, I shouldn't have to ask that, because if it was good enough for me, right, then that should probably be like enough in theory. But I think one of the coolest things about, specifically talking about Sully, is like he sees so much in so many of the guys, right? Like Sully is one of the guys that will essentially never give up on you, like no matter what like adversity that you face, or whatever happens, like because he sees, if you're on the team, he sees something really cool, like really good in you, and he sees that you can do really good things, especially in the sport. And I think that definitely has rubbed off on me even more since being here. And I you want to do him proud. I mean, Sully's a big name, right? Like he, as a freshman, he was 3rd in this, or 4th in this meet. You know what I mean? Like his worst place was 4th in this meet. So it's like you want to make him proud. And on top of that, like I wanted to make sure that I was making, the team proud. And I, over the last K, I knew that I bled spots. And I, I knew that I got passed by a few guys in the finishing shoot. And, it's never fun to lose spots going into the finish, because you always want to be able to finish hard. And I was a little disappointed in that. But yeah, I just, Sully's a guy that I really want to make proud, because he invests so much, and he like sees so much. And with us, it's like, I think him and I are very similar in this. It's like, it's always on to the next, like it's like, yes, like you were 24th, like what's next, like what's, him and I are already talking about race planning on the bus ride to the airport, right? Like about where we want to race for outdoor, and our strategy for that. But it means a lot if you hear Sully say like, yeah, you did a really good job. Because it's like, coming from him, that's huge. And that's why a lot of guys come here, is because Sully is just that elite of a coach. And to hear him say to you like, yeah, dude, like you killed it, or like, yeah, I'm really proud of you, like that, that does a lot. And at the end of the day, even on bad days or a bad race, like if you can still hear something that Sully found was positive, like that changes the entire experience. Like when I blew up at East Prelims in Jacksonville 2 years ago, probably like one of the worst races of my career, Sully still came to me in the weight room as I'm biking, because I was so nauseous and dizzy I couldn't even run to cool down, right? Like he still comes up and he's like, hey, like I appreciated that you fought out there and you didn't, you never quit. And it's like you flip a switch, right? Like it's like you're so bummed and you're so disappointed in yourself, and then you hear that and it's just like, it's a little better, right? Like, okay, at least there's one thing that he saw that was worthwhile in the race, or that he thought was good. So yeah, I guess it feels good, obviously, to like have that form of affirmation from Sully, but it's mostly just, yeah, you just want to do people proud, especially people that invest so much in you, in the team and in the coaching staff and in the school. You want to do them proud. So hearing that from him and from other people definitely makes all of that 10K of work and that 5K of work like worthwhile, because it's just, you want to make people proud. So
well, it's without a doubt this weekend you made Michigan proud. So if there's no further questions for Dave or Connor, I think we'll be all set.
Awesome.
Just want to say, Devin, thanks for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for asking. It's so cool. I mean, interviews are still so weird for me. It's like, wow, people actually want to hear from me. So I appreciate it. I really do.
No problem.
We appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, congrats again, and hopefully you are now recovered from the past week.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully this next week I'll get a couple easy runs. Hopefully, it won't make me do a session soon. So I hope he sees I earned it. Yeah,
right.
again, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.